at the same time. I don't know that we'll be publicly sending it out. We can have a free discussion. I just can't do both at the same time. So I do appreciate people muting their phones unless they're speaking, and if not, I've asked Dr. David Banks to mute people centrally, which means it'll be hard to get you off mute. But we very much appreciate everyone being here and joining us for this call, and we welcome your participation and your ideas. This is a topic that's new to this forum, and so we were really looking for you to weigh in as part of our alternating round robin.
Robin Austin
has joined the meeting.
That's probably even better. Okay, it's Elizabeth Cohen from Hunter College. We're going to get started in just a few minutes. I'm going to give people just another minute or two to log in. We have a pretty good group already, and we welcome you all to this round-robin discussion of citizen and community-driven science and scientists from the Translational Neuroscience Research Interest Group. So I welcome all of you to this call, but moreover, I encourage and welcome your participation in this discussion. And I will give people just one or two more minutes. Then I'm going to start.
Has joined the meeting.
Which means that people can just
has joined the meeting.
So welcome everyone to the March 6th Citizen and Community Science and Scientists Call. It's a round-robin discussion of the Translational Neuroscience Research Interest Group.
Has joined the meeting.
Hosted by NINR, to which we are incredibly grateful. So on behalf of David Banks from NINR, Rachel Schiffman from the University of Michigan, and myself at Hunter College, I welcome you to this meeting, and I think I'm going to go ahead and get us started. And again, this will be an interactive meeting. If you can mute your phones, if you are not speaking, it will give you the option to unmute it when you do want to speak, and we hope that you will. This meeting is being recorded for notes only. I don't anticipate sharing or posting the results of this, but I just am not able to take notes and share at the same time and present. So it would really just be for internal purposes only. And please do not put this call on hold. Most importantly, please don't put us on hold. You'd be surprised how many people have hold music or hold messages that they don't realize that they have. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started.
Has joined the meeting.
And get the discussion underway. Today's meeting is on citizen and community-driven science and scientists. And this group has requested that every other meeting be a facilitated round-robin discussion. And so this is one of our discussion meetings. And it focuses on, I use this broad definition of community or citizen scientist as an individual who voluntarily contributes his or her time, effort, and resources towards scientific research in collaboration with professional scientists or alone. These individuals don't necessarily have a formal science background. And I want to combine this, this with an update to the All of Us research program. Yes, hello?
Has joined the meeting.
I'm going to talk just a little bit about the All of Us research program for a minute because it brings forward some of the issues. I think it's a good concrete example that brings forward some of the issues that or not issues, but the opportunities that we're about to have. So I think a lot of people have heard of this by now, and I am in partnership with Weill Cornell Medical Center, Columbia, Harlem, and Cornell, and NYP here in New York for this program, the All of Us Research Program. It's a historic longitudinal effort to gather data from 1 million or more people living in the United States to accelerate research and improve health. Different, perhaps, from other studies that we've done, the core values provides an example, but I'm involved in a lot of research, and I know others are on the call as well. Much of translational science now, this program and others included, is stressing that our study populations reflect the rich diversity of the U.S., that we are genuinely partnered with the people who are in the study that we are trustworthy and transparent in our interactions. In this study, participants will have access to the information, and the data will be accessible broadly for research purposes, which includes citizen or community science purposes. So one of the impetuses for this call today is for us to understand as a group or explore as a group what types of things citizen or community scientists might be interested in if they had access to a de-identified million-person platform such as this. And then security and privacy will be of the highest importance, and this program will be a catalyst for positive change in research, in other words, for empowerment. So I'm not touting All of Us program right at this moment, but using it more as a concrete example of the fact that I think more and more studies are looking to be a catalyst for positive change, empower people through either their own data or de-identified aggregate data, and how shall we, as the scientists who sit at the intersection of the community and the science, what shall we be looking for or designing for? So this just gives you an idea. Right now, nationally, All of Us has over 110,000 participants, with 75% considered to be underrepresented in biomedical research. These are some of the partners, including the federally qualified health centers, community partners, and Walgreens Pharmacy, et cetera. Again, I don't want to make this about the All of Us study necessarily, but just use it as a as a case study, as an example. This is the type of information that this study is collecting: EHR data, survey data, physical measurements, biosamples, and eventually, not now, coming down later on down the line, information from wearable and digital apps. And I think this study will actually be providing Fitbits for some study participants. So we're out in the community talking about this study and inviting people to participate, and I'm thinking forward now about what are the types of things that the community may want to ask a database like this. So this call, our call together today, I've invited people to please come on and join in a discussion of how citizen or community scientists are defined or should be defined, how we have made them how have you incorporated them as part of your team in your CTSA, CTSI, or CTSC, what tools have been provided, requested, or found to be helpful, and how do you see the future role of the community in our work? So with that, I'd actually like to open it up to discussion. For the group who's on the call. And I know that we have people on the call who are out in the community now, so I'm going to ask for people just to join me in this discussion. So you can answer any of these questions or start with the first one and work your way down. I think, let's see, are there people on the call who are currently working in the community who could think of any of the types of questions that the community may want to ask or could ask of a large data set? Like, what types of things do you think people are mostly interested in?
This is Lula May over at...
Thank you, Lula May.
You're welcome at Weill Cornell. At the CTSC. I think community members, one, they're very interested in what happens to the data, any data that's collected for research. I think they're very interested. They don't want to be identified, or if they could possibly be identified, they want to know what could happen to the information, especially if the information identifies something within their health, within their gene pool, or even something that sort of points to certain conditions or illnesses. Will they get insurance? Will they get health care? So I think the community has loads and loads of questions about the research process.
Hi,
So
this is Robin Austin from, sorry, go ahead.
No, please go ahead, Robin. Thank you.
Oh, sure. This is Robin Austin from the University of Minnesota School of Nursing. And so I'm interested in, I'm an informatics, and so I'm also interested in how can we use informatics tools, such as, like you said, the mobile health apps and EHR data, all of those things, from that perspective. And last year at AMIA, or the American Medical Informatics Association, we held a pre-conference session specifically on citizen science and what is the responsibility of informaticians or those in informatics related to using or providing tools for those out in the community and citizens. And we had two patient advocates that were there, Liz Salmi, if you've heard of her name, or Hugo Campos. And they were there as well, just sharing their experience of how they've gotten involved in research and what perspective of theirs and how did they, unfortunately, it was a lot of their own health issues that they ended up diving into the space around citizen science and around their own, figuring out their own health data, using it to help their own situation. But I agree with the previous statement of that it's a huge concern for data privacy, security, how's my data going to be used later, all of those things. But the other part is, the other shift or side of that is we're working with communities in Minneapolis around opioid use. And I think looking at it from what is their perspective and what are they looking for is we're taking the approach of right now we're just there to listen and help them to formulate the question, versus the other way around is where we come in with a research question and say, what can you give us? And so I think that that's a couple of aspects to use. Is one is how can we efficiently use the informatics tools? And two, how can we be there to listen and provide reassurance or guidance and versus coming in with a question, first of all, but letting the individuals in the community and or the individuals come up with that research question. That was just my thoughts coming right out of when we first started.
I think when it comes to developing a research question, I think that is paramount. I think if you can really get a group in the community involved in that research question, and if your institution is willing to make a long-term commitment, I think it becomes very powerful and very practical, and I think it works. As for the informatic tools, I think it just depends on the types of tools you're developing, and it's nice because community people, period, tend to love informatics. They love devices. They love all of those, that technology, but I think it has to be used very wisely.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I think it's, like you said, the emphasis on very long-term relationships. I think that it's just from the get-go, just building the trust. And I think that was a big kind of conversation or topic that came out of the pre-conference session we had is not just trust with the researcher, but then if you're looking at it with your own healthcare provider and having the trust with that person as well to be involved in research or even the All of Us program, I think there's a huge trust factor there. So I agree with you completely.
And I would agree. I would actually agree with that as well. And All of Us is a good example in some ways, and actually not a good example in others. So I don't
Has joined the
think
meeting.
it's perfect, but I do think that it gives us the opportunity to kind of talk about what's coming. So I think these tools around community engaged and community based research, with where people are in from the start and developing the questions, and it addresses a critical community need, are all very important aspects of it.
Hi, this is Linda Roussel from TWU, and this might be a little side note, but I'm reading a really good book, and it's by Harari, Harari, and it's 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. And he talks about when infotech and biotech come together, and a lot in machine learning and all algorithms and driverless cars and providerless algorithms that will sort of take over what we as healthcare providers have been really called on to do in terms of our individual patients, but our community. So I'm thinking that our community would really be interested in, as someone mentioned about how we're going to use the data, and not only from a privacy, but also it's like, how is this going to be sort of bundled, to create ways that, almost, if you will, if you think of driverless cars, sort of take over, our own decision making in terms of our health care. So our own health, care of our own selves as well as our healthcare system. So I just think that might be something just to think, and it's more long-term thinking, but it's really, some of the stuff he says, it's really scary to me. But anyway, it's just been sort of eye-opening to read his commentary, and he's a physicist.
This is Lula May again. One of the things that I think is crucial, it's just as they're inventing the driverless car and they're inventing all of these different electronic devices. I think if we do not hit, in terms of research, if we do not hit the basics with the community and walk them through that, you're going to get we're getting extremes, such extremes in knowledge and extremes in understanding and extremes in participation. So a lot of the things that in our minds we may think they will help the community, various members of the community in regards to their health, it may actually work to their detriment, because they won't be prepared to understand. And so I think
I'm so with you. Yeah, I'm so with you, Lula. And he really talks about it's almost like we lose our ability to, have any sort of control of our own destiny. It's just scary. Let's just say.
Exactly. And so someplace in this whole arena, we have to be able to empower, but we've got to understand it well enough so that we can empower. And looking at research from various elements and various angles.
So, Lula May, since you have the floor, do you want to talk a little bit about some of how you think we can enter a community and start this? You're in communities already. Lula May and I work together at Cornell. We're in some communities. We need to be in more communities over time. Do you have an idea, or do others on the call have an idea of how we might do that, or how it's been successful so far?
Well, I think the way I see it is foundational is building relationships, long-term relationships. It's almost, in a sense, I look at it as a really old-fashioned and traditional approach, in that you take time to get to know people. You take time to find out what their health needs, their health concerns are, and let them talk about it. And from that, from that richness will grow ideas and concepts and about things that they'll be interested in researching and doing research on. I know that we have various programs here at the Clinical Translational Science Center and various research projects that we want the community to become involved in. But it takes a lot of building connections, building bridges, and building knowledge. Because if we don't do that, just old-fashioned footwork, old-fashioned, you're having a meeting, how can I help, what is the meeting about, all in terms of healthcare. And from that, building out. Otherwise, I find it very frustrating, and for me and for the community as well.
Interesting and agreed. Others who are working in the community or who have a sense for some path forward? Do you want to talk a little bit about tools or programs that have been helpful? I know a number of people are doing, for example, viewings of the Henrietta Lacks movie. Is that something that has worked for people on this call? Have you found that to be a good way to start to surface some of the more difficult discussions?
Well, this is
Elizabeth.
May again. Oh, go ahead, Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, this is Julianne Imperato McGinley. I'm the program director at the CTSC and a nurse wannabe. I shouldn't be on this call, so I'll just make my comment as brief as possible. We found the Henrietta Lacks movie and ethics panel we always have that follows such controversial movies very, very helpful for the community and for the faculty. So we have both. And we have been doing that for a number of years. And we started actually with some Broadway actors who volunteered, and we did something on Tuskegee that was so powerful that I don't think any of us would ever forget it. But half the 400 people that attended were from the community for that one. And then we tried a rock opera about designer babies, where it was about a community a small community where one physician was the donor of sperm for everyone that needed it in that community. And so it turned out that cousins were dating cousins, and what genetics, when it goes wrong, what it can do. So that was an interesting discussion afterwards. So yes, we find those activities extremely unique and very, very helpful. To add to what Lula May was saying, for 10 years we have been getting to know the community. We didn't even try to bring research to the community until we gained their confidence. But when we first went to the community, they said, "Oh, so you're here? You're going to do a study and then go away." And the decision was made that we would bring education and prevention to these various churches that Lula May has been extensively involved with, over 120-something churches and senior citizens organizations all throughout the boroughs, so that they know us. They know Weill Cornell CTSC, and now we can begin to introduce different ideas to them concerning research, concerning all of us, concerning genetics. Genetics is a problem. It's not a problem for the researcher. For instance, with this huge influx of information, suppose we do find that there is a marker for asthma. Well, that's fine. One could do family studies and you could get them to volunteer. But what happens with insurance and what happens with health care? I mean, down the road, instead of solving something, it could make it even more problematic for the community and particularly for a poor community.
These are great points. Yeah, you're welcome on this call anytime. We appoint you an honorary nurse, and you're welcome
I'm
anytime.
An honorary nurse.
The work is exemplary.
And I'll go away, and you won't hear from me again. And I'm sorry to all the nurses.
No, we don't want you to. We want you to stay. Do people want to respond to that? Do other CTSAs or CTSCs have programs similar to that, or ones that are different but creative in those ways?
And I think that, we have a unique team, and a lot of them are very young. Lula May knows that. And they're excited, and they love to be in the community. And also, we have the nurses. It's part of the curriculum to the nurses who have to do their community service. They then join with our program. So we have a wonderful relationship with the Hunter College School of Nursing and their students. And those students mix with our medical students, and they're out in the community, and they learn how to get along with one another. So we're having a really good time. trying to get to know the community and trying to get to know one another, which is very important for physicians and nurses to learn how to work together.
That is fabulous. We're in an urban area because we are in the New York area. Are there people on the call from areas other than urban areas? Because I'd be very interested in outreach to rural or other types of communities. Do other people have outreach efforts that are ongoing that they have found to be particularly successful, or ones that they have found to be particularly not successful? We know that parachuting into the community to sign people up for a study and disappearing is where I know the researchers on this call are way past those types of points, but are there things that people have done that they have been surprised at either the effect of or the lack of enthusiasm of the community
has
around?
left the meeting.
Elizabeth, do you want me to speak again?
Sure.
Well, we have worked with the psychologists when the Iran, Afghanistan, Syrian war was at its highest point, and the National Guard was being sent overseas. And so we were video conferencing to the National Guard, which was quite a distance from where we were, and it would be hard for us to get there. And we asked them what they wanted, and it was anxiety reduction things which were implemented by the psychiatrists. And then we added yoga, which was done through video conferencing. And the next year we came back to them and we said, tell us what you like best about the program and how we can change it. And they said, we like the program, but we really love the yoga, so give us more of the yoga. And we thought that was very interesting. So we asked them why. And they said, because when we have to go and practice for hours carrying 200 pounds or 100 pounds of equipment, after the yoga, we feel really good about ourselves and we feel like we can do it. And I think it was a surprise reaction that of all the lectures and tricks that we told them about anxiety and how to allay that, they chose yoga. And part of that was that the teacher was so exceptional that he could reach this audience. So that's another point. I mean, you can do video conferencing in many ways, and we were able to do it successfully to the National Guard before they were deployed.
This is Linda. I'm curious in terms of the yoga, because I'm a yoga practitioner, and wondered. I mean, so they actually they were able to watch a video with the person doing yoga and taking them through the different meditations. Yes. Okay, that's great.
Exactly right. It was a male, and he was a Yale graduate, but he was a yoga instructor. But he had I think he was from the Yale School of Drama, so he had a way of engaging these soldiers who were obviously terrified. They were all young. They're all going away, and I don't know how well trained they are. And he had a way of doing various things on the floor with them, and they got into it, and they had a lot of fun. And it depends on the degree of video conferencing, how clear the picture is, and how accurate you can do that. But at that time, we had new equipment. It was excellent visualization on their part, and they were most excited about that. So, yeah, you could use yoga for a lot of things. I could imagine.
And even if you couldn't see, just like going through breathing exercises and different kinds of breathing can be so.
Yeah, he did that.
Yeah,
he did that. Yeah, he was extremely effective. But that program, I guess, as the war is coming to the end, that program is is just about gone. Now it may start up again with post-traumatic stress and the number of suicides that these veterans of these wars are actually committing when they come home.
Yeah, I was thinking when you said that, it would be interesting to see, like, those that had gone through the practice and it became part of their own practice, that when they did return home, were they, compared to those who maybe didn't, because some individuals don't see it as useful, so, they just sort of turned off to that, but those that really engaged versus those that said, oh, this is for, this is not for me, to compare the, just the PTSD, the depression.
Well, that's an excellent an idea, but unfortunately we didn't get the names. We know the different troops. We could try to contact them through whoever the commander was there, and we could do that, but we didn't. But I think it's an excellent idea to see if they were somehow protected from what is happening now as they come home. And it's so severe that I think it's almost 20% of returning veterans have either committed or attempted suicide. It is a terrible situation and very sad.
Also, this makes me think about the fact that the community, what we've seen so far in a number of studies, is that the community is most interested in wellness, not treatment or, disease management, as research tends to sometimes go, but they are more interested inherently in keeping themselves well, keeping themselves out of the system, if you will. So I think that's a very good example of the fact that they're drawn to things that keep them, that improve their wellness and well-being.
Yeah, I think you're right. And when we wanted to get to know the community, that's exactly what we did. We asked them what they wanted to hear lectures on. What did they want us to give to them? And, of course, it was always hypertension, diabetes. And for the elderly, we actually, to the yoga nurse, to the elderly, we had a couple of sessions of chair yoga, and they loved that. So, it's all a matter of resources and how long you can continue something. But that's something for these senior citizens to actually get involved in and to start to move, because if they don't move, they'll never move. If they move, they'll continue to move. And yoga is something that they can help them and is actually fun and extremely healthy for them to do at that age.
Yeah. And when you think about, any kind of, mindfulness, meditation, yoga, just the breathing, it doesn't have to be an either or. You can do both. You can educate, you can, do the lab screening and blood pressure checks, and you can, bring into the, into the whole into the whole self-care, again, the yoga, the mindfulness meditation. Ellen Langer, she's out of Harvard. She's done a lot of work on mindfulness meditation, and it's just some phenomenal work in terms of, just paying attention and then just, seeing where your mind goes and having some way of, again, dealing with your anxiety, depression, because you can do something about that. So I'm a real proponent. Again, I've been a nurse forever, so it doesn't have to be either or. We can incorporate both in a real holistic way.
Yeah, and we did. It was always combined with whatever they wanted to hear about, whatever topic they chose.
So I think that is actually very interesting in the terms of us thinking about how to engage the community. And I agree, that all of these things, like kind of you obviously meeting them where they are. I'm interested in this last bullet for the last kind of 10 minutes of our call. What is the future role of community science in our work? And I think that there's two parts to that. One of them is, how do you see the community playing a role in developing the science? And the second part is a question that we ask ourselves at our CTSC, and other people on our CTSC ask us, and I have heard from external reviewers, how are community people involved at every level of the science? At every level, how do they say it, Lula May, in the meeting? At every, stage or phase of the translation. Do people on the call have a sense of, say that again?
In every phase of the translational process.
In every phase of the translation, yeah. So how are people parsing that in their, in their applications, but also in their practice, in the CTS, in the Translational Science Awards, or across the translational continuum? I think it may come up for most people on this call. So it's good for us to start thinking about it together.
Well, when it comes to, I think, okay, go ahead.
No, you take it. Go ahead.
Okay. I think when it comes to the community and community getting involved and developing an awareness of the science, I think, again, it's giving them information, hearing them, and being aware of their needs. And since here at the CTSC, we have experts in all of the fields that relate to research, is getting the community members at the same arena, in the same environment, with our research people, with our research team, with our ethicists, with our biostatisticians, with the people in informatics, so that the community
has left the meeting.
So the community members can be aware of the whole process, and when they start to think about research, it's not shrouded in mystery. And when I'm saying community, my understanding of community is extremely large. So I'm saying community, academic members, academicians, professionals from other areas. I'm talking about community members as community members from various churches, from various programs, senior center leaders, or people who are just interested in doing research and interested in science, who want to be a part of the whole picture. I think, as a matter of fact, in my humble opinion, I think down the road, community people are going to invest more and more of their own time in research. I think much more than we really think they will. I think they are going to invest a great deal of time, to the point that sometimes people on our team may be somewhat taken back by the interest that community people will display in regards to research.
I have seen that sea change as well, Lula May. And I think that we've turned a corner in some of the areas where people are, and it happened in the rare disease community, decades ago. People are demanding that they are a part of research. I think it's going to go very far in the other direction. Do others want to wait? I'll probably wrap us up at about 1:15. So do others have things that they wish to weigh in on? I feel like don't lose the opportunity to either give your feedback at this level or get feedback on something that is on your mind.
Elizabeth, this is Linda, and I feel like I'm probably, sounding very stupid here, but I love that term, community science. I mean, I've seen it, maybe done a little reading, but when I looked at the definition as you were talking, and someone mentioned about the community, really having a greater investment and wanting to, take charge, if you will. So when you look at the definition as a strategy, it provides integrated approaches to building the capacity of organizations and institutions to develop the health economic equity and social justice of communities. So I just love that. So thank you for highlighting all of what we've talked about. So I've learned a lot, so I appreciate that.
Sure, and I actually want to move away from the citizen science because especially here in New York, the citizen has taken on a whole new meaning now. So I'm a little, both philosophically and also like just that word, it's not about being a citizen at this point. That has a lot of different meanings now. So I think they meant it more generally when they named it, but we've moved away from that. I love the community science one as well.
I do too.
And can you send me the place that you've referenced that from?
I sure will. Because again,
thank you. If you get a chance, that's a wonderful definition.
Yeah, it really is, and it talks about the whole collaborative learning process and stakeholders, and so and this whole what we've learned from community participatory research. So I just love that direction because it does embrace it's more inclusive, if you will.
Great. Others on the call who wish to add or just give us just some parting words of wisdom? And I'll just say that this is, I think, it's a rich dialogue. I think it's something that we're going to see more of going forward. I know that it's something that will appear in that the way that we do this will be something that will be necessary for for renewals and also areas where supplements are available. So I think having this type of discussion can help us all think about how we might address this going forward, in addition to it being a social imperative and a scientific one. So I thank everyone for their time, and I thank the Cornell people for joining this discussion in particular and allowing us to learn from your experiences and what you've done. I very much appreciate it. I would like to do a last call if anyone has any further ideas or suggestions. Next month, the first Wednesday of the month, is going to be a group out of Rochester. It's actually Gay Thomas is the woman's name. They had a PCORI grant for tools that engage communities in science. Their first project, which I saw a number of years ago, I think was called CARDS, but they've expanded a toolkit for community engagement, and it's Gay Thomas and her group who's going to be presenting their PCORI toolkit on engagement. So I hope everyone can join us, and I will send the information around. If you're not on this list and you wish to be, you can either please start a new email and send it to me, and I'll forward it on to Dr. David Banks at NINR. And I thank everyone for their time and their participation. And if you're in the New York area, please stay warm and safe, and we will see you next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Robin Austin.